have to suffer through our technical issues. So here we go. All right, all right. So here we go. You're back at it again, you guys. I know y'all probably just think I'm crazy because we keep coming back to the same place, but the facts are the facts, and we ready to share them. So if you have been injured and are praying for a solution for the lingering pain, numbness, discomfort, or restriction that can accompany the post-traumatic condition, then you are in the right place. After an injury, surgery and physical therapy can be the first steps to recovery. And much of the time, this is enough. But what if you fall into the situation that many of us fall into? The space where all medical options end, but the pain indicates that more healing requires um, to be done. So you've taken all the steps and measures, and you are currently desperate for answers. If this sounds like you, then stay tuned as we dive into this session of Master Your Recovery Virtual Summit series. In this virtual series, we are going to cover how post-traumatic pain accounts, for 14% of all disabilities worldwide and includes localized pain, such as low back pain, knee pain, shoulder pain, and even general joint pain. And what you will discover is how you can find relief by partnering with the right kind of complementary therapy service to help you overcome these types of challenges. I am your host. Yes, still me, El Kersey, and I am elated to introduce you to today's speaker, Dr. Karen Noonan, PhD. She has a PhD in metaphysical sciences. She has been offering prescriptive exercise prevention. Now, you try to say that really fast, but that sounds super hot. And treatment of injuries for the past 38 years. Now, you guys, Karen is super awesome and she knows her stuff. When I met Karen several years ago, I knew that she was a yogi, but she refused to call herself a yogi. But I call it the way I see it. So we're going to welcome Karen to the stage. All right. Hold on. We're doing all our tech stuff. Here we go. Here she comes. All right. You on mute, Karen.
Hi, Al. So blessed and honored to be here with you today, and I thank you so much for including me in this amazing summit that you're hosting. And you're doing such wonderful things with this and changing the world one soul at a time, one life at a time. So thank you.
Oh, so sweet. I'm so glad to have you. I'm going to let you have the stage all to yourself, okay?
Thank you, my friend. God bless.
Ma'am.
Right. Well, it's so good to be here. I feel very honored and blessed, as I said. My passion is for prescriptive exercise and prevention of injury as well as treatment of an injury once it's occurred in the most non-invasive way possible. I studied teaching. I did a 4-year degree in physical education and injury management many, many years ago. And I've had 2 healing movement studios, one in South Africa, Sculptonetics or Sculptor Dynamics. And in Greenville, South Carolina, I had Yoga Nice. Recently moved, and I'm now working more on yoga therapy, workshops, and yoga teacher training. But I do love and have such a passion for the prescriptive exercise and healing from within. Take into account, yes, I guess I've only been practicing yoga for 30-something years, but to be a yogi is it's a big thing. And my whole life is about yoga, and I yoganize everything. So that means that I incorporate other things, other modalities from my previous life, my gymnastic coaching and swimming and karate, and all of these things can come in, and I uniquely bring them together to create my own style of movement and teaching. But yoga therapy, which is yoga is great as a prescriptive exercise just without even knowing much about it, if you're doing it with the right teacher for your body type, remember yoga always meets us where we're at. So no matter what injury we may or may not have, or whether we've got tight hamstrings, we're always going to find something in yoga that is going to make us better, make us super ages. Really, it's a hidden secret that this is what's going to help us to age more gracefully, more beautifully, and with less injury. Because my research has said that aging is not about our biological age; it's about how we've looked after our bodies, the injury prevention. Inflammation is what ages us. Pain makes us feel bad. So we want to do everything in our power to stay well, to stay healthy, to stay on task, and to do whatever it is that we need to do, but still enjoy ourselves. So my emphasis today, there's a big running event coming up. So my emphasis today will be on focusing on running injuries, because I have to let you know that if you're a runner and you love running, 60% of people who are running will have an injury at some point in time. So I want to just go over a few potential injuries, how to identify them, and what's probably causing them, and what to do about it. And of course, yoga is always my main frame to go to. And I always recommend going to see somebody like Elle with her brand new beautiful treatment. Finding a yoga therapist like myself, where you're working one-on-one. Or if you're going to join a class situation, first maybe go to see a 500-hour yoga teacher, and then go into a class setting once you know what you're dealing with yourself, so that you can modify and adapt your class to your needs. And you don't have to understand much more than that about yoga. It works your body in such a way that your body self-heals. And it's such a self-caring mechanism, which incorporates the mind, the body, and the spirit, which I find is essential. We can't heal the body if we aren't balanced in our minds and our hearts. And everything is congruent, and everything, one body as one body. So your physical body, your mental body, your emotional body, when one is out of balance, everything is out of balance. And that's what I work on. It's about bringing all these different aspects of us, these bodies that make us who we are, bringing them together so that we work synergistically towards increasing our levels of energy. And that means high vibes. So you hear the high vibe that we yogis use. It's just about increasing our energy and our vibration to make it more positive for longer periods of time, so that we stay in this fabulous, peaceful, happy feeling more often than not. Does that mean that we're happy 100% of the time? That wouldn't be human. But it means that we are working on a more happiness mindset, so that when we go out of kilt or out of balance, we more quickly come back to center, and that center would be happiness. And happiness leads to better health. I mean, if we're happy and we feel good, our energy is high, we're moving around, we're shuffling around, we're not feeling that stress that comes with fatigue, and fatigue, which can lead maybe to an injury. So it's all a holistic approach, a totality approach, I call it, to healing the mind, the body, and the spirit. And also remembering, of course, that if you're participating in a sport like running, and you're participating in marathons, a lot of that is mental. So we really need to keep the mental side up and running. And that means meditation, a happiness mindset, doing things for ourselves that keep us happy. And if running keeps you happy, I want you to be not part of that 60%. We want to keep you out of that 60% that will have that injury. So that's what I'm going to be delving into today. I've only got 38 years of experience in the prescriptive exercise. I feel like I'm just beginning. There's so much still to learn. That's the exciting part. It's like being a kid in a candy store when we see how much is out there that's innovative and new, and that we can adapt to what the best is, the ancient, the esoteric, mysterious, 5,000-year-old system that scientists are now catching up with, to say, hold on, I go to yoga therapy conferences, and the doctors and the therapists and the scientists are all doing all this wonderful research to prove what yogis have known for centuries. And that is super, super exciting. So I'm so happy to be with you to discuss some of this and to go through some of these potential injuries. Now, it is normal. I mean, if you think about it, you're running. If you're running, it's quite normal. It's a lot of pounding on the body. The only thing that we have to protect us, the only gear, I mean, if you're a tennis player, you've got your tennis racket, you've got your shoes, you've got your outfit. When you're running, really the only thing that you have is your shoes, your running shoes. So your running shoes are extremely important. And you'll find all of these injuries I'm going to be discussing now, your treatment and your prevention, a lot of that is going to be to do with your running shoes. And the one shop I know very well in Greenville, it's around the country, is Fleet Feet, where they have fabulous staff, well trained, very conscious of what they're doing, and they can help you to get the right insert, heel cap, if you pronate or supinate, to help you with that so that you prevent most of these injuries from occurring in the first place. That's one thing. There are a lot of other things that will come into it as well. Your gait, whether your feet roll inwards or pronate, whether your feet roll out, supinate. And if you don't get those things addressed with your shoes and getting yourself properly managed, you will probably end up with an injury. That's par for the course, unfortunately. And the shoes only last between 400 to 600 miles. I wish I could ever run that far, but for a runner who's running a lot, you need to be replacing those shoes every so often, more often than not. The other thing is that those shoes are your shock absorption. And so after 250 miles, that shock absorption has been reduced to a huge amount. And if your shoes get wet or your sneakers get wet, running shoes, that too will reduce the shock absorption capacity. So shoes, number one, very, very important. And you'll hear me repeat that quite a bit as we move through some of these injuries that we'll be discussing. The other thing I really, really want to bring across is balance, not just in our sport, but in our daily lives. I feel like when we're out of balance, that's when an injury is more likely to occur in the first place. Because, I mean, this is where yoga is great. You know, when you get on your mat, if you've ever practiced yoga, if you're losing your balance and falling over in a simple pose like tree pose, 10 to 1, that's not because of anything other than the fact that you have been overworked, you're out there, you're running your kids, you're trying to get 101 things done, food on the table, and you're a little out of balance. You're not quite where you need to be to feel centered and grounded. And so this goes for everything. When we're not balanced in our running and we're pushing ourselves too hard, that can also cause an injury because we're not listening to our bodies. And through yoga, we learn that when we listen to those little nigglings that happen and we stop and we pay attention and we do our due diligence and we do what we need to do to fix, then we're not going to end up with that big injury or big issue, which will come if we don't listen to those little nigglings. That is an absolute fact. We need to learn to be our own best doctor and to listen to our bodies. And I say this in every class, stop where you need to, listen to your body. Don't push through pain. Please never push through pain. Pain is a gift. Pain is telling you that there's something going on in your body that you need to pay attention to. And typically the best thing you could do right then is stop what you're doing and seek advice. If you're not sure if it's a chronic condition or an acute condition, go to a doctor, go to a PT, go to a yoga therapist, go to an OT, go to somebody who can help you with that. Go to somebody like Elle who's doing her innovative practices. But don't just ignore it. Leave it for maybe a day or two, and if it doesn't improve, I would go and get some help for any of these injuries that I'm going to be discussing. And I know I've only got a half an hour, so I'm trying to not be too fast, but to not let you get bored either. So we're going to do a little bit of work on a bit of anatomy and how yoga is like, I consider it a superpower. It's an anti-aging superpower. And when we work with the right teacher who knows our bodies and who you will then learn how to know your own body. There's nothing better than know thyself, right? If you know your body, you know, I know what my issues are, I'm going to be a lot more careful. So I do recommend that you go and have that, maybe a class with that YT or that ERYT. Find out what works best for you. So when you're in a class situation, you're not going to be pushing too hard or competing with the next door neighbor. And this again is where balance comes in. Know thyself. Yoga is not competitive at all. So that's the beauty of it. And when we work this way with our bodies, prevention is always better than cure. But once we've got an issue, we know how to work around it. We can heal our bodies naturally. That's the beauty of this human body that God has given us if we look after ourselves. I do believe that yoga is a fantastic accompaniment to any training program because it's essential. Going back to that balance, when it comes to running, for instance, and this applies to any sport, you're putting a lot, particularly in running, a lot of pressure you're jarring, you're moving, you're repetitive. That is running, right? And you've got your feet are involved, your ankles, you've got your knees, which bear such great weight on our bodies. You've got your hips. You've got to have balance between the muscles, the ligaments, the joints. If your hamstrings, for instance, are tight, which a lot of runners have, that can lead to knee pain and to back pain and to hip pain. It's a kinetic chain. In yoga teacher training and anatomy, we refer to kinetic chains. So if your ankle is sore or your knee is sore, this is part of a chain, and that chain will react all the way through. So we have to really, really pay attention and figure out what it is and what we need to do to fix it and nip it in the bud right away. But yoga actually addresses that because strengthening of the muscles on either side of each joint is essential. So your quads have to be equally strong with your hamstrings for running. They have to be equally flexible too. Our hip flexors, which are, that help you to bend your knee and lift your knee up to your chest, these have to be both flexible and strong. And then the opposing muscles, which are your hip extensors, which are your glutes, your buttock muscles, and the lower back, those have to be equally strong and flexible too. Without any of this, and without your knee being on either side balanced between ligaments and tendons and the ankles, we have issues. And so it's so important that we take all of this into account. Running is not, to me, you can't just warm up running. That's my big thing is in anything I ever teach, the warm up is essential. We must warm up for the sport that we're participating in. We must do it in the right way for our bodies and for the run that we're going to take. How long will it be? What terrain am I using? But all of these things come into account when it comes to setting up our warm up. But a warm up and a cool down, and I don't mean just getting on your shoes and walking slowly. I mean twisting, rotating ankles, working the knee joint, uh, warming up the muscles so that you can stretch the quads and the hamstrings, and especially the calves as well, and the hip flexors and the IT band. Once you've done that, the chances of actually injuring yourself if you've got the right gait and the right shoes are minimalized. And if you've got the right training facilities, so people who are guiding you to train at the right pace. So having said all of those things, you're going to find there'll be a bit of repetition when we go into some of these injuries. And I know I should be Italian, right? I speak with my hands a lot. So we've spoken about the mind-body connection through yoga, and mind-body spirit. Something else I want to talk about is the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the wandering nerve, and it's the 10th cranial nerve, and it comes from the brainstem all the way through and it meanders and wanders through your entire body, connecting to your lungs, to your heart, to your digestive organs, all the way down to the reproductive organs. The vagus nerve is extremely important, and yoga, without us even thinking about it, actually works to stimulate and to tone and balance the vagus nerve so that we've got a good vagal tone. And this keeps us younger, healthier, stronger, and less prone to injury. The other thing with yoga is that it calms the central nervous system down, which is what we all need, I think, especially with all that's going on in the world. We need to keep our minds and our hearts balanced and calm, and to take ourselves out of that freeze or fight, and back into rest and digest mode. And yoga does that without us even thinking too much about it. And of course, the internal organs are being stimulated and toned, and these are all things that are just natural byproducts of yoga when it's done the right way. And so this is how my style, Yoganize, was born, out of the concept of incorporating all of these different aspects and making us ready to tackle anything. You want to practice and then go and paddleboard. You can use it to play better tennis, to play better golf. It's just a program that's for everybody. And yoga, remember I said, meets you where you're at right now. You don't have to wait to lose weight. You don't have to wait to get stronger or more fit. Yoga done the right way with the right teacher will meet you right where you are, taking into account anything, including your injuries. So we've spoken a little bit about anatomy, but when it comes to running, a lot of wear and tear can happen. Just even if you're doing it right, there's still a natural wear and tear that can occur, and we have to be aware of that. That's just science. So it's helpful to understand the science and why yoga and movement of the joints is so important to prepare us for our run, and not just running itself. We've got synovial fluid within each joint. Okay, within this, there's a joint capsule, and then there's the synovial membrane. And then within that is the synovial fluid. And if you think about, say, you've all seen the top of a chicken bone, that white hyaline cartilage. Now, if that's now the joint of the head of the bone, and it's rolling in the joint, and there was no lubrication from the synovial fluid, that would be the the grinding that you hear. And you can stand up now and you can do a couple of ankle raises or heel raises, and you might hear your ankles. If you circulate your ankles, you might hear, and that just means that we need a little bit of a buildup of our synovial fluid, because that's what keeps that's our joint stability. That's our shock absorption, and that helps the nutrients to run and flow through and into the joints, and the nutrients and the healing potential. So that's important. So for me, I share this because I want you to really think about your ankles and your knees and your hips are really doing a lot of work and weight bearing when you're going to go and pound, particularly if you're going on concrete. So if you take your ankle and you rotate your ankles a few times, back and forth, do some heel raises, do some calf stretches, do some quad stretches, do some hamstring stretches once your hamstrings are warm, remember, and work on your IT band, you're going to be a lot better equipped to have a really good run without having any potential for injury. So let's go to some of these common injuries that I've been speaking about. I've got a few notes here just in case as I do, get off tangents. But as we know, something just like a whiny hamstring, that's typical in running because, as I said, sometimes we have an imbalance between quads and hamstrings, and they can maybe be a bit tight and not flexible enough. And yoga will help us with that. But you could have a tender knee as well. And it's sometimes hard to decipher what's actually going on in the body. So let's go into some of these injuries, and maybe I can give you a little bit more insight. So we've said that, ironically, shoes play the biggest role. I'm trying to keep us on track. And I think I've gotten far. We have to go into the two different types of pain. I mentioned acute pain and chronic pain. Acute pain is something that it's like, it's something that happens sudden onset, could be quite violent. It's happening right here, right now, and it actually means that you really have to stop everything right now. And that could be, that would require probably first aid. If you hear you have an injury and you heard a crack or a pop or a snap, or you felt a tear within, that could be a ligament or a tendon that is ruptured or torn. You do not want to continue when you have an injury like that. And that could be in the knees, it could be in the ankles, that could be anywhere. So in that situation, that's acute. That's where you need to go and see a doctor, a physical therapist, and get this sorted out, maybe have x-rays. Obviously, the treatment is your typical first aid. Stop if there's bleeding, stop the bleeding, apply ice to the injured area, and immobilizing that area. So obviously that's medical attention. What I'm going to be speaking about more is the chronic, that long term. When you've had that niggling knee that just doesn't want to go away, or the ankle or the foot pain that just doesn't want to go away. That's more what we're going to be focusing on here. So one of those is the chronic causes overuse, and of course that goes hand in hand with the territory of running, because you're going to be doing the same thing, repetitive movement over and again. And so one of the things that contribute to that would be the terrain. What are you running on? Are you running on concrete? Are you running up and down on uneven terrain? What is the condition of my running shoes? What does my foot anatomy look like? Am I internally rotated? Do I have high arches? Am I externally rotated? These are what your shoes will help you with if you fitted them out. It could be a decrease in your strength or your flexibility that causes this. Also, you have to look at your mileage, weekly mileage, as you're increasing it, as you're working on building up towards a marathon. I would work with specialists. Again, I refer to Feet. They've got a wonderful program where they actually take you through and they build you up to your first 5K or 5 mile and beyond that. And I think that's a really good way to work with professionals in that arena. Also, they'll help you with running form, because if you've got a running form that is poor, and I think we've all seen runners who have a different gait. What happens down on the feet, we yogis know that whatever happens in the feet, the condition of our feet, that's the foundation. And that will move upwards and affect your entire body. So if you've got something going on with your knees, with your hips, or your back, look to your feet first. That's so important, okay? How do we know we've got overtraining? Because sometimes overtraining is something to do with that. And when we're overtraining, there's some very easy symptoms, things to look up for when we're running. Weight loss. You don't want to have too much weight loss. Persistently feeling fatigued or, low in energy reserves. It might be that sleep disturbances. The morning pulse will increase by up to 10 points or beats per minute. That's a giveaway. Persistent aches or pains. I know that as we age, there might be aches or pains, but it doesn't have to be the norm. Are we treating our bodies with the respect that they deserve? This divine being, am I treating myself with love and self-care? Or am I pushing myself too hard? Headaches, that's another giveaway of overuse. Increased incidence of injury would be another sign. And if you just don't feel like exercising and you don't even want to run anymore, and that's your passion, that's a sign that you've been overtraining. So again, think of a traffic light, the analogy of like if I'm in the red as a runner, that means lots of pain, stop. Yellow, it's like minimal pain, I think I can move forward. But if you're going red to yellow, you might want to look a little further and deeper and see what's going on with the body. When you're feeling great all the time, which is unusual, I guess, but if you're feeling great and the lights are green, you go for it. But still, honor thy body, look after yourself, and treat yourself with respect and love. Okay. Alrighty. Now, with all of these injuries that I'm going to be discussing, if they are chronic and not acute, obviously it's the rest, that we all know. It's like rest up, ice the area between 15 and 20 minutes up to 4 times a day. Compress the area so that we don't have too much swelling that's happening. You might want to take elevation, obviously, maybe take an ibuprofen or an aspirin if that's appropriate for your body, and work with a yoga therapist, a physical therapist, a doctor, an occupational therapist, somebody who's going to help you, or with Elle in her program, but work with somebody who understands the body and who can help you get back to, your energy levels as they are now. But do rest. If you've had an injury, do rest. If your pain persists beyond 10 or 14 days after the injury, I would definitely go and see a doctor about that and make sure that there's nothing worse, and especially if it's a recurring injury. So let's go into one of the worst, plantar fasciitis. This is quite common, not just in running, but just in general life if we haven't warmed up properly. And that's that pain at the bottom of your foot. So if this is your foot, it's the pain at the bottom of your foot from the heel into the arch of the foot. And you'll know you have this if you've got some pain, especially in the early morning when you first get out of bed, or if you've been sitting still for quite a long period of time. If you have pain there, you might just have a little start of plantar fasciitis. Or if it might even be fine. You start on the run and you feel it, and then it goes away, and then it comes back later. It could still be plantar fasciitis. So be careful of that. It's something to watch out for. It's typical if you have a high arch. Again, your shoes come in. Or if you have very flat feet, again. Your running shoes might have excessive wear. They need to be revamped, a new pair. It might be the wrong type of shoe for what you're doing. Another big thing, tight calf muscles. Tight calf muscles will make you have pain in that area, and it's not a fun pain. It's not comfortable. Training errors again, poor running form. And also another one is transitioning too quickly. If you've been starting on the treadmill and you then start running outside, the transition might be happening too quickly, which is why, personal trainer, somebody who's experienced in running would be of benefit in that area. Okay. So what can we do if we know we've got some of these symptoms that have come up, what can I do? Well, number one, decrease your running. I would cross train with swimming or yoganizing or whatever you want to do. You can apply your ice treatment 20 minutes, 2 or 3 times a day. You want to stretch your calf muscles. I would get some blood flowing first and then stretch, because then it prevents further injury. You can massage the arch of your foot. This would be very helpful. And I've already mentioned the shoes, the arch supports, the heel cups. If you go into a specialist store, they're going to help you with all of that, specific to your body type and to your foot and for the running that you're going to be doing. So and you might want to get a gait analysis done with somebody like a yoga therapist would be able to help you with that. Maybe a running trainer or personal trainer would be able to help you with that too. But the best method of preventing this is your stretching, and just making, and you might know this, but say this is your foot. One of those stretches, these are your toes, get a band and pull back and stretch your toes back, and you'll feel this whole area stretching out. That's a really, really good stretch to help you release the pain of the plantar fasciitis. And remember, if you rest up and you do your due diligence, this should be gone in no time. If you continue to push through and push through, out of balance again, you could end up with a chronic injury, which might take you out of your running, and you might have to put your ideas and hopes for that next marathon aside for a little while longer. So I don't recommend that. Okay. And that applies to every injury that pertains to running that I'll be discussing. Something else that you have probably are very aware of is Achilles tendinitis. Also not a fun one. It's also an overuse injury. Obviously, the band of tissue that connects the calf muscle at the back, lower part of your lower leg, to your heel bone or calcaneus. And so that area, when that becomes inflamed, that causes a lot of pain. It could be from runners who've had to suddenly increase their intensity. Also weekend warriors, middle-aged people like myself who don't do anything all week, and then you might go out and say, oh, I'm just going to go play a game of tennis quickly. That's typical of that sort of an injury because we still think we're 20, right? So again, that's where the warm-up comes in, and that's where knowing our bodies is very important, and not pushing ourselves too hard. Just be kind to your beautiful body. We have one. It's treated with love and respect. In most cases, Achilles tendinitis can be treated with simple at-home care. But if it is more serious, and if it feels, if you push too far, too hard, you might end up with a little tear, which could require minor surgery. So just be aware of that. And again, let pain be your guide. Let pain guide you. See pain as a gift and a blessing, teaching you about your body instead of saying, oh, I'm putting it aside. Don't ignore it. Do something about it, please. And remember, this is also, and the symptom of this would be pain in running, would be a pain with heel strike, or when your foot lands on a curb, there's that sharp pain that comes through, or running up and down, up the stairs, or a sudden change of direction. Those are all indications that you could have a problem with Achilles tendinitis. Okay, and the other thing is when you get up in the morning, your muscles tend to shorten. I recommend that lovely stretch because when you get out of bed and you feel that pain, it's because the calves muscles shorten when we sleep at night. So before you get out of bed, do that little stretch and you probably won't feel that. All right. We've already spoken a lot about the causes of Achilles, similar to the previous issue. But one is excessive hill running or stair climbing. Excessive again. Remember balance. Naturally tight calf muscles, which we all have our issues, right? The flat feet, incorrect shoe type again. Notice the lap over here. Overused running shoes. Remember, we have to replace them every 400 to 600 miles. Could be a change in your shoes that you're not used to, or running surface. It could be poor running form again, training errors, or again, transitioning too quickly from your treadmill to outdoor running. It's very different to run from one to the other. So if you're starting running, these are all good tips for you to help prevent an injury. And I'd love to hear from you at some point to hear how many of you who are avid runners have had an injury and how long did it take you to overcome it and how did you manage that? So again, treatment for this condition is similar. Modify your training schedule, maybe cross-train, maybe do something different. Again, warm up. Stretch your calf muscles, physical therapy, ice, all the same things apply here. Use the appropriate devices that would suit your body. Anti-inflammatory medication if it serves your body. Massage is great. And avoid hills and stairs because those are what are causing it. And of course, to stretch, calf stretching, heel stretching, ankle stretching, these are all going to really, I know it takes a little extra time, but the benefits in the long run, if we want to be super agers who are able to run into our 70s, 80s, and onwards, or do any physical exercise, warming up and cooling down correctly. These are your keys. This is going to be the key to aging well. And aging is just a number when we age, right? It's how we feel as we age. And exercising keeps us young unless it doesn't. Okay, in other words, if it's making us one injury after another so that we can't exercise, we're doing more harm than good, which is why this is such important work. And that's why I love Al and Erica for doing this conference. It's so important to get this information out there. And I think you're wonderful for being here. Thank you. Another common injury is runner's knee. So the pain builds up gradually. It's usually like just beneath or around the kneecap. And it might go away and then come back when you're running again. And it could come back at any time. It could come as a stiffness after prolonged sitting. So just pay attention. If you've got, I'm going to say it's not normal to have pain in the long term. The aim for me as a yoga person is to prevent injury, but also to prevent pain. Yoga works on lowering the inflammation in the body. Inflammation and pain go hand in hand. Inflammation and aging go hand in hand. And when we can't move because we're in pain, this is tantamount to aging. So these are all very important things. And if we are feeling chronic long-term pain, I really think that we need to go a little deeper and maybe change things up a little bit. Then we can come back to our running and enjoy it and be where we need to be. Just honor thy body. And again, it's all the same issues. It's the addition to, in this one, of course, it's the tight hamstrings and quads. It's the shoes. It's the incorrect shoe type. But here in runner's knee, we have an additional area where we could have weak thigh muscles and hip muscles. This is important. Our hip muscles, that hip girdle, that's our full weight bearing is through the hip. These are the strongest muscles in our body. It's great that they are strong. Sometimes they're strong, but they're not flexible. Sometimes they're flexible, they're not strong. And this is, again, where balance comes back in. It's no good having a hyperflexible person with Gumby without the strength, because then our joints would be all over the place, and that's just as bad as being super strong like a weightlifter who's got these bulging muscles, but you can't even stretch them out. Again, balance is key. Balance is key to form, to exercise, to enjoyment of life, to mind-body-spirit connection, and to how we age. So the thigh and hip muscles are going to become very important in your knees. Remember, I said that kinetic chain, that what affects one affects the other. Again, it's a poor running form. It could be that you've increased your running too quickly. It could be your terrain again. And again, I repeat, it could be moving from the treadmill to outdoor running too quickly. So let's look at treatment for runner's knee, because this is a really common injury. It doesn't have to be a bad one. It's one that you nip in the bud. As you feel it starting, you do something about it. Avoid the painful activities that are causing it in the first place. Ice, anti-inflammatories, if it serves you. Strengthening. It's no good just stretching your calves. You want to have equally strong and flexible calves. Strengthen the quads. Strengthen the hip abductors. So the abductors are the external part, and I might stand up for this. Just so I've got my yoga clothes on, but this area here, these are your abductors. So the movement that way, that is abduction. Those muscles need to be really, really strong if you want to keep your knees strong and your ankles and your feet strong. It's all connected. And this is where yoga really, really does a good job. Pilates too. And I incorporate Pilates into my yoga. And of course, your hip extensor muscles also need to be strong. Where are my hip extensors? That would be your glutes, your buttocks, and your lower back. So that any movement back where you're strengthening that back area of your body. As I say, it's no good just working on the one area of your body. You've got to work the front, the back, and the sides to keep in balance in order to keep the ligaments, the tendons, the muscles all healthy and strong and balanced. All right. Let's see if I've gone off track. So a great way to help, with hip strengthening is, it's a simple one. You just line your side with your legs and your hips aligned, with your shoulders aligned, your feet facing each other. And all you do is gentle leg raises to the side. So it's basically side line with leg raises with your feet parallel to each other. That is going to strengthen the abductors. And just do a couple of those, 20 of those every evening, and you're going to find that you are already getting that wonderful strength, not just into the hip the abductors, but into the IT band, which is this area here, all the way down here, strengthening your knee. This will go a long way to keep you strong and healthy. So if you haven't added that as part of your regime or your routine when it comes to running, I would add that to it. So we call those side leg raises. All right, and then the hip extensors, a great one, yoga is locust pose. And if you haven't practiced locust, that's when you lie on your belly, and you keep your chest down, and you just press your pubic bone into the floor, inhale, and lift both legs up at the same time. Obviously, if your back feels strong, if it doesn't feel good, don't do it. You can do one leg at a time. And you can also, for those of you who are stronger, add the upper body too. So you're in that beautiful locust position, beautiful strength in it. Do that and hold it for 20 seconds. Do that 3 times a night. You'll come a long way in strengthening those muscles. But remember, afterwards, you need to cool them down and stretch them out so that we don't have back pain. Balance. All right. So you're going to do these exercises and repeat them a few times. Do some sets and you'll build up your strength. Having shown you the IT band, the iliotibial band, we can have iliotibial syndrome too. Oh, gosh, the things that can happen, right? So this is pain on the outside of the knee while you're running. So if you've ever had pain on the outside of your knee while running, it's probably your IT band. And your IT band is that beautiful long attachment that moves all the way from here all the way down to the outer aspect of your knee. So it covers a large area. It's a wonderfully stabilizing force. But when there's an injury, that can be quite painful and it can take some time to heal. So just be careful of that. And again, if you're doing these hip strengthening exercises, if you're doing hip flexor exercises, that means lifting your knee up to your chest, the front part of your body, and the hip extensors, you are already doing a lot to prevent this from happening in the first place. Okay, you're warming up. And this can happen, strangely enough, you'll notice this injury more when you're on a slower run than on a faster run. So pay attention to that. If you feel that niggling pain on a slower run, it could be your IT band. And again, contact somebody like Al. Go to a yoga therapist, an experienced yoga teacher, or a physical therapist. But again, if it's an acute pain or if it carries on for way too long, seek medical advice. Okay? And it's all the same things. It's running on a banked surface. It's changes in running surface that cause it. Again, the flat feet, training errors, increasing your intensity too quickly, overused running shoes, the tight hip muscles, incorrect shoe type, poor running form, and again, the transitioning too quickly into outdoor running. So if you think about all of this, it's all the same things. If we have to take all of those areas into account and warm up and cool down correctly, there's no real reason why we need to experience pain, in my humble opinion. Well, that would be my wish and my prayer anyway. Let's talk about treatment for the IT band when we do recognize it. Again, modify training schedule, warm up. Yoga is great for this, by the way. Fabulous stretches that we do in yoga that would really, really be beneficial to both prevent and treat. There's a beautiful IT band stretches. One is pigeon pose. You can do reclining pigeon. You can do the half reclining pigeon, especially for those of you who've got tight hamstrings. That would be a better one. There's so many options, and I guess I'm recommending quite a bit of yoga here. You can also take anti-inflammatory medication, apply ice again. That's always helpful. Massaging just on the lateral area of your knees, just to the outside of the knee, a little massage would be very beneficial. Again, there are shoes, replace them, make sure you've got the right shoe type for you. All right, I think we're coming up to one of the ones that I had when I was a runner, shin splints. And oh my gosh, this can become such a chronic issue and it can be so painful, as can all of these issues, right? But shin splints, if it gets to the point where you feel it when you're just walking around generally, it's quite tough. And obviously it's a shin splint injury. It's in the shin, in the front of your leg. At first, it might first start after running, and then it could become, as I said, persistent pain in the long term. And we want to prevent that from happening. As all exactly the same reasons for being. But the one thing is that the heavy concrete running when you don't have the right shoes, that can be so jarring, and it can even cause a stress fracture in the lower body. So just be careful. Again, it could be tight calf muscles and weak hip muscles. So again, working on the strength and the flexibility of all of these muscles is going to take us a long way in prevention of injury. And then, of course, if you do have an injury, work around it and heal. Rest, decrease mileage. It's all exactly the same. We don't have to go into any more. It's just repetitive. And of course, avoid hills. I think hills are one of the worst things you could possibly do with shin splints. If you've ever had it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Again, it's the shoe maintenance is essential. I've already spoken about the shock absorption, that you lose up to 30% after 250 miles, and that's quite a huge amount to lose, 30 to 50%, in fact, if I'm more scientific about that. And stress fractures, this is a persistent pain, most common in the shins, but it might be in the foot, the hip, the pelvis. With a stress fracture, that is total immobilization. This is why it's so important to listen to your body. And if you find that it's like the pain is, especially if you have a high pain threshold, notice if it's ongoing for a longer period of time than what you're used to, please go and see a specialist, get an x-ray taken, go and see your medical doctor and make sure, because you might need to be in a boot or something that would, otherwise you could end up leaving it in the long term. It doesn't heal correctly, and then you can't run again. So, I mean, if we love to run, you want to be able to run because that's your happy place. So my aim is to get you to a place where you can build up gradually in the right way, with the right tools, stay free of injury as far as possible. And when you are injured, listen to the body so that you can come back to your happy place as quickly as possible and as safely as possible. And so it would seem that yoga and yoga therapy are kind of a one-size-fits-all approach if you take into account all that we've discussed. And yoga offers something for every sport. So that's my superpower of choice. I consider it a superpower because I feel like it's the number one secret anti-aging ingredient out there. And there's more on this to follow in the future. But this needs to be embraced. But we need to, we need to become less toxic towards ourselves. We need to evolve and change and grow. And just yoga brings us to that beautiful place where we're able to be ourselves authentically here and now and not worry about what people think of us or competing. It's just me, myself, and I on my growth experience, noticing what makes me happy, what ticks me off, what I can do to bring myself back to my space of balance and happiness more quickly. And for me, that's yoga. For you, it's running, but I do believe that a little bit of yoga, adding that to it and adding a bit of meditation will keep you running in a most healthy manner for as long as possible. And that would make me very happy. No judgment, no perfectionism, just me, myself, and I, learning to love who I am in this moment, loving self, accepting self without judgment. That's our aim. And that is probably the hardest thing for any of us to learn, right? I think we're all very hard on ourselves. And I think that's why we injure ourselves too. If we can let go of that and we can maybe add a bit more yoga to our lives or meditation, which is part of yoga. Yoga without meditation does not exist to me. That's why, I mean, if you're a yogi, you're incorporating all of these different aspects into one. But it's about transforming our hearts and our minds. And that's so important. And seeing the individual and meeting the individual at that individual place, that whatever's going on, because we all have our own things going on mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And that is important. And you are important. And you are worth taking the time to love yourself and to do what you need to do to keep yourself healthy and strong, to break down those barriers. And I spoke about the holistic and the totality approach. It's no good having the mind, the body, and the spirit disconnected. We have to know who we are and delve into that journey so we can almost rewire and reconnect ourselves to become the best version of ourselves possible with the highest vibration possible, and using the strength of our brains and the rewiring of our minds and our brains, and using yoga to do all of this. And so yoga, yeah, superpower. Is it a form of exercise? Yes, but it is also an art, a science, and a philosophy. It's a health and wellness modality and an anti-aging regime and a way of living and being that is unparalleled by any other system, in my humble opinion. And it works by counteracting our stress. And as I said before, scientists are catching up. Stress is the root of all evil. If we can control our stress, which we're doing through running as well, this is important. That's why I want to keep you in your shoes and out there and doing your thing. It's by working on those stress levels that is going to keep us healthier and stronger and younger and more vital and on purpose. As we age, we want to stay on purpose. We want to be useful. And if we are feeling good in ourselves and our vibration and energy is high, we'll be able to do that by coming back to balance. And I think bringing our tendons, ligaments, muscles back into balance, that's just the physical component. But that physical component, when we're feeling good, it gives us the ability to go further into the spiritual side of things and into the mental and emotional. As again, all for one and one for all these bodies are interconnected. We are not just this body. You, my friend, are so much more. And you've got so much to look forward to as you move forward in your movement journey. I encourage you to bring meditation into it and to try and experiment. And I'd like to close with words by Deepak Chopra, who says, everyone has a purpose in life, a unique gift or special talent to give to others. And when we blend this unique talent with service to others, we experience the ecstasy and the exaltation of our own spirit, which is the ultimate goal of goals. And newsflash, we each have a unique gift to give the world, and it is when we are happy and balanced that we are best able to achieve this. And if we are able to use the tools at our disposal in preventing and treating these injuries as they arise, we'll have more pain-free time to go out and sprinkle our happy fairy dust wherever we go. That's my wish for all of us, and for you specifically, if you're watching this. I thank you for sharing your time with me, beautiful soul. And I welcome Miss L back to the stage. Namaste.
All right, y'all, that was fantastic, Karen. Thank you so much for sharing all that. I have so many things that I want to like recover. I'm like, oh my God. Okay, so I am always talking about everything is connected. I am so in agreement with you on that. It is amazing. So you talked about balance. Balance being so important. I think that that's one of the things that I think that we miss a lot when we're like the guys who I work with, right? So the athletes, like they're always like, I got to be stronger, I got to be stronger, I got to be stronger. But I'm like, you also have to be more flexible, more flexible, more flexible. But they don't. And I'm like, your muscles are like this tiny, and that's why you'd have like the big. You talked about the big bodybuilders, right? And then how about the one dude who can't even open up a cap? You know, you seen those kind of guys. I'm like, how about some stretching?
Exactly. And, you know, I think that people just feel like, well, that you don't know. If you don't know it, once you know it is one of my favorite expressions. I'm going to say something that makes no sense, but once you know something, you can't unknow it. And I know that's not a real word.
Mhm.
But once you know that, yeah, it's great to be strong, but if you are more strong than you are flexible, you're out of balance. If you're more flexible than you are strong, you're out of balance. And that's just from a physical perspective. And that then feeds into the emotional, spiritual, and mental perspectives or aspects of our being, those bodies, those causal bodies. And
Mhm.
so it is important. It's so important. It starts with the body because that's what we as humans know and can see. It's tangible. But what affects one body affects all of our bodies. So if we're out of balance and we're too strong in the body and we're pushing, then we've got perfectionistic issues, then we've got injuries, and that affects the psyche, it affects the emotional state and the mental state. And so those yogic bodies that we refer to are interconnected in such a intricate way. And that's why we pay attention to all of these aspects. Great question.
Absolutely. I fully agree with that, and I really believe that prevention is way better than a cure. Benjamin Franklin is my favorite. I would say American history person, character, however you want to say it, because he always had those kind of things. You know, his statement is a, a pound of, an ounce of prevention is better
Prevention is
than a pound of
wonder.
cure.
Yep.
Yeah, so I fully agree with that. I think that is so super important. Um uh and sorry about that. Let's see. Um okay, and this is another thing. So with my specifically football players, I would say any professional athlete, it is almost like part of their job description that they have to play through pain. And so we're always telling them that we constantly are like, you got to know the difference between playing injured and playing hurt,
Yes.
right? And so I think that whole acute versus chronic is critical for to be acknowledged, like, because people don't know the difference. And thank you for pointing that out. I am always trying to get people to, I'm like, if something just happened, you need to see a doctor, right? That is so important, because it is, you, people will call me and they're like, I heard this and I need you to fix it. No, I need you to go to the doctor for the doctor to tell you what's wrong with you, right? Because it could seem like, I had one guy come to me one time and he kept saying that he hit himself with a stick or something and it was really painful. La, la, la. Well, we're trying to like figure out like what's going on and why this pain is like that. We'll come to find out he had got one of those little ticks. Yes. And so it was so the one that caused the Lyme disease, that
Parasite.
little
Oh
tick.
my gosh.
Exactly. So, and I'm just like, you can't. What I learned from that experience is, just because a person thinks that this is the thing that's causing their injury is not always the thing. And so, if you have something that's really acute and you've never experienced before, see a doctor. I mean, it's worth the visit. And then once you've done all the medical, then you go look for other things if the medical fails you to a certain degree. Because, just like what we do is, it answers some of what is out there. Medical has its place, and I believe that everything has its place. So that's why I super love that you said that um, pain is, it's a gift, right? It's your guide. It's the thing that's going to tell you, okay, something's wrong, right? And we tend to go, well, I think what happens a lot is people come to me and are like, I don't really know what happened, and just start hurting.
Hmm.
And yeah, that happens a lot. And I'm like, how did, and it baffles my mind. And it's
Because
because
people
we're
pay
so not focused. Huh?
Yeah, people don't pay attention, and
Exactly.
there's the mindfulness is missing.
Exactly. And that's why I so love what you get people to do, and what you offer, your part of what you bring to this,
Thank
the whole wellness thing, of course. Because I feel like the balance, if you get an injury and you don't know, one, I've seen people be bleeding profusely and they're like, I ain't even know, I don't even know what happened.
Oh my gosh.
What? Yes, I'm like, seriously, like, yeah, and they're like, I ain't even feel it. How do you not feel that? But it happens a lot. And and just from being in a hospital, in a hospital setting, and you seeing all these kind of things, and you're like, and I'm like, are we so disconnected from our bodies that this isn't a thing? Like, I don't understand that. And we were talking about earlier about one of my clients. He's in pain so much after surgery, he didn't even take any pain medication because he's like, it always hurts.
That's so sad to me, isn't it?
Yes, me too, exactly. I
All
was
the
when,
time.
okay, y'all go back and see. That's literally what I said before I even talked to Karen today. Y'all can see it earlier. It was crazy because I feel like the what's happening is we are so externally focused. We are always trying to get to the next thing. We are always trying to get to tomorrow instead of making the thing that we want come to us. You
Be
know,
present,
and
right? The be present in the moment.
yes, exactly,
That's
exactly.
why things just pass us by so quickly. But it's hard. That's one of the hardest things to learn. And that's the mindfulness, and that's why I feel like if we're lacking that, running is such a great place to be mindful because you're just in your. It's like swimming. You're in your head. You're pounding away. So it is a good place to be mindful. But in that case, also be mindful of what's happening in the body, and not just
Exactly.
what's happening emotionally and releasing. But
Yes.
but you're so right, Al. That makes me sad to think that so many people are in pain, constant pain.
Mm-hmm.
It's I mean that's not normal.
For people who are like athletes, it is normal. That's just what they do, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. And so that's kind of like what I mean. That's just the space where we find them. You know, they have been conditioned over their lifetime to be elite. You have to be able to overcome and deal with and whatever. And it's unbelievable. And to me, they all seem like they all remind me of like the gladiators, in Roman times where they're
Yeah.
just hashing it out and I'm like, wow. I mean, and it's just I'm like, I'm just like, it's unbelievable because people will come and they have like like really so what I think the balance between like what I do and what you do is I'm always dealing with like the super chronic people who've been super chronic, like not even regular chronic, right? This is super chronic. Like this has been going on for multiple years and they just deal with it and they figured out how to work around it. Like you have a, it's, I don't know. Okay. So cross country, no, what do you call it? Field, field and what do you call track and
Hockey?
field?
Oh, yeah.
Track and field, and
Yeah.
like you got a javelin thrower, and their shoulder is just it's worse than a quarterback's shoulder because they're just constantly having to throw that thing or to spinning that ball and all that. So now you have this whole thing where they got an injury 10 years ago. And so instead of throwing it like this, they figured out how to use the body to throw this. You know what I mean? And so now this is more. I don't even know if there's a thing after chronic. It's like
It's a
hyper chronic.
the compensation injury can be even worse than the original chronic injury. We have a compensation.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. Because you have muscles that's not supposed to be doing something that it's not supposed to be doing. So now you got everything, you pulling everything off of balance, right? So now, so it's a whole big crazy thing. So that's kind of why, even why we decided to do this, the summit was because yes, we know that people go to extreme measures to become extreme or super or or famous or whatever because they're trying to hit a pinnacle. But at some point, you have to unwind all those things that you did to yourself. And it takes more than, like, yes, I can fix the chronicness of the situation, but you also need to go learn how to use your body now. So that's where I think like yoga, that's how they kind of like mesh together because you really need to learn how to be aware of your body. You need to figure out how your mind, your body, your spirit all work together as one thing so that when you're retired and you're no longer on the field, you don't feel like a Mack truck runs you over every morning when you wake up.
I mean that yeah, just the thought of having to exist like that is pretty sad. And even people who even weekend warriors end up with big injuries like that because they do nothing for 3 months and then they go out and they do a quick ski and slalom thing because they have the ability to do it, and then there's a back injury,
Yes.
and that's what I specialize in is back injuries are. I mean, once you have a back injury and it's a chronic condition, that can cause a lot of issues in one's life. It's not just the pain; it's the inability to move well. And
Mhm.
that's with any injury. It's about if we could prevent it better, learn how to use our own bodies, knowing that each one of us has our own individual body type, style. We're built differently. And sometimes certain sports are not meant for certain body types, taking that into account as well. And, like I know I'm not a good runner now. I ran at school, but I run now. It's just a bit heavy for me because, it's just it puts too much pounding on. So I prefer for myself a heavy, deep. Who has time to be doing the running and the yoga? I do my yoganizing and deep walking. That's my body type. For different people's body types, running is perfect. And for some else, football's perfect. But taking that into account, looking at the body type, the structure, the muscles, the ligaments, the tendons, how they connect, that will affect your warm up and your cool down and the exercises in between. And that in turn will prevent injury if we're doing it for our own body. And that's where the individualization comes in. That's why I believe in working with somebody one on one and just really finding out how my body works so that I can go into a class situation, for instance, in yoga, but I don't have to. As a teacher, I would know everybody in my class and I'd know who could do what, but not every teacher's been doing it for 38 years, so it's not always possible. Get 10 new people in a class. It would be nice if that person coming into class as a new person in a group setting, because that's just easier to go into a class, but what is good for your body and what's not, and how to adapt the poses for you. Because yoga, as I said, is a one size fits all. That doesn't mean doing it this way is good for everybody. It means it will fit you if you do it the way that serves your body in your condition today. And that's really what for me it's all about. And that should be for our sports too. And I know if it's competitive, it's a bit different. If that's our bread and butter and people are making a lot of money playing a sport, I get that you'd have to put through in a situation like that. But what if we get to a point where super athletes have the right training and conditioning so that they don't hurt themselves, additional over and above their football coaching or training or whatever sport may be. Even in karate, when I did my black belt, there was still, we warmed up well, but I would go in sometimes and then, for black belt, a different type of a warm up so that we would be able to go longer for our big black belt testing, because that was like a huge long test. Even me being, very cognizant of my body, I could feel that doing 100 push-ups in one go is going to be tough. So there must be ways to warm up the body, cool it down, so that there's no injury. So again, it's about the individual. You're right.
Girl, I ain't doing no 100 push-ups for nobody in one go. That's crazy.
I don't know if I
No.
could do that, that's for sure. I might not even make 5.
No, no, thank you. I'm so sorry. Okay, so comments that we got, it says mindfulness. Pay attention to yourself and your surroundings. How do you feel in this moment?
That's exactly what mindfulness is. That's beautiful. I've ever said that.
Mm-hmm,
That's perfect. And yes, I'd say that 38 years. Yes, I do love. I'm very passionate about what I do, especially when I
mm-hmm,
see the results in when I'm working with an individual and you see them from beginning and they've surrendered to it. When I first moved to Greenville many years ago, I was one of the first yoga studios, and we, people was a bit odd, about yoga as a form of spirituality. And but things have changed now. It's become very mainstream now. But I think that's also because a lot of times we're teaching just the Western side of things, and I don't believe in. I believe East has to meet West somewhere in the middle, just like
mm-hmm,
medicine has to and science has to meet yoga halfway in the middle. There's strength to each side, and when you meet in the middle, 50-50, it's like being 50-50 left-right brain. You
mm-hmm,
take all of this into account, you're going to have the perfect whole for me.
mm-hmm. Yes,
And
I think that Western medicine is now doing a lot of more integrative things like that. There's just a whole big movement right now, and that's kind of why this summit is also very important, because I would say Western medicine doctors don't necessarily know what all these different integrative things offer. And so they don't know which thing is going to be the right thing, because there's so many different types of things out there. So if you know what I love that you said is that you have to be your own best doctor.
that's true.
That is so critical, because you need to know. So if there's a service, people do research on medication all the time and look at this and this and that, but they don't take the time to look at, okay, so yoga, would be a good thing for somebody, but it might not be the right thing for you right this minute, because you got a thing that you need to fix before you go to yoga, or vice versa. Right. So there's just a situation where you have to be the one who knows your body. You need to know what things are out there and which things are going to affect your body. I love the fact, I love that you modify poses and stuff for people based on their body, because nobody's body is exactly the same. And just even letting people know that that's important is critical.
It's almost like you
So,
give somebody permission to give themselves permission to slow down if they want to speed up if they need to, and to listen to and honor their body. Sometimes, especially women, well, and men who are athletes, give yourself permission to take a step back, be more mindful. That's
mhm.
very
And that's across the board, because Erica would tell you, she, when she was going to, she talked about this earlier too. She said that when she was going to design school, that they told her, that her teacher told her that there's a way that you're supposed to do it, and you just do it that way. So she always did it the way she was told to do it. But her husband, he's also a graphic designer, and when she would see him doing stuff, she's like, "Why are you doing it like that? You're not supposed to. That's not the right way." And he said, "Is it? And right. So it is just that kind of thing where you really have to be willing to kind of step outside of what you are told, right? Is the thing. You know what I mean? Because and just like what we do in our practices, when we started out doing the basics and knowing what everybody told us you're supposed to know. But then when you realize, okay, you see the world differently. I mean, we clearly do. And so we've been able to take what everybody else has been collectively knowing and take it to a next level. I always say, most people use microcurrent specifically in a kindergarten. And I'm just going to say this and just going to piss people off, but I'm sorry, in a very kindergarten way. It's like,
101. Yeah.
yes, exactly. And I'm like, look, sugar, I done took this thing all the way to 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 the stratosphere, right? And I'm like, I am pushing the envelope because I want the next person to come behind me. Like, I want you to learn everything that I got to learn, everything that I got to say, everything that I know. And then you're going to take it and you're going to add something to it, and you're going to make it even more special, because I know that I don't know everything, but I do know a lot more than most people when it comes to how microcurrent works and how to use it and all that kind of stuff, just like you do for yoga. Because remember when we met back in the day, I was like, wait, I was like, I was like, you a yogi? You're like, I would never say that. I'm like, well, I'm saying it for you, because it's just the truth. And but that's just kind of how, I mean, when I see it, I see it. That's just how it is. And I'm
Uh,
like, I know, I just know what I know. And
yeah.
see, and you're like, I'm not. I'm like, yes, you are. You can't tell me no
Well, and,
different.
and you're a master in your field, my friend, and I
Yeah,
think that we're both doing the same thing from a different perspective, and
yeah,
work so well together. It really is, and it's all about keeping people well so that people can age. When I say age, have a positive aging experience. So I'm not
yes.
like not aging, and not, but a positive aging experience, because how can we be useful and stay on track and on purpose if we're in pain? We're in pain all week,
Exactly. And I
managing
don't want to be in a nursing home. I don't want to live in one of those places. I watched my dad do it. I don't want to do it. And my uncle was on. Yeah, I don't want to do it. I'm sorry, y'all. I don't want to do it. I know that some nursing homes are very vital and important, but I don't want to live in one. I'm so sorry. So that's why I'm like so focused on like telling people like this whole wellness thing. It's because, okay, so what's happening, like you said, the Western medicine is catching up to Eastern medicine, and they're trying to like figure out how it all, but the fact is what is. I don't care who you agree with, who you don't agree with. What is.
I like
And when it's for you, it's for you. When it's not for you, it's not for you. And you have to know. Nobody can tell you. See, this is the
exactly.
thing. Yeah, it's like you have to know. You know when you see it, you know when you experience it, what's for you. So that's why I am like so happy to be doing this summit. I was, y'all, everybody knows Elle hate being on camera. I can't stand it. But I had to like step up my game to bring this to the forefront because nobody could do it but me. and as much as I tried to find somebody else who could do this, I really searched a lot to try to find somebody else who could do this, and it just wasn't working. So, Karen, how can people get in touch with you?
I still have my website, yoganize.com.
Mhm.
And I have my same email address, karen@yoganize.com, and my telephone number is actually on my website, and people can contact me that way. I tend to get a lot of spam calls. So if I don't answer straight away, that would be why on a phone call. But if somebody leaves me a message, I'll get straight back to them. Except for the
Okay.
next 2 weeks, I'll be in South Africa for 2 weeks. But after that, I'm going to see my mummy and my daddy. I haven't seen them for more than 2 years now. It's been too long. But I would love to hear from people if they need to contact me. The website is a really good way the information will be there, and my number is in there too, and the email address.
Awesome. So I want to go to South Africa with you. Everybody keeps going on trips and I have to stay home. I'm like, I want to go too.
Well, I'm literally just going to go and be just with my parents and my sister. So it's necessary. It's been, I mean, with this pandemic, I haven't flown at all since the beginning. So it's going to be
Mhm.
6 hours wearing a mask. It won't be, that part I'm not looking forward to, but being there with them is
I think they just turned that band-aid off. I don't think you have to wear a mask the whole time.
on the
Okay.
plane. I think I will
Yeah.
anyway.
And then so my last question is, do you still have videos available for people to
So
get?
that's a lovely question. Thank you. I actually, my husband uploaded them to my website. So I've got guided meditations. For people who are doing 101 meditation, I want to start with something that's easy to follow. And I have the videos have all been uploaded, so you can actually buy them directly instead of a physical copy. A download
Mhm.
is more reasonable too, and it's just quick,
Awesome.
easy.
Go Sean. Go Sean. So you guys, Karen has a super wonderful husband. His name's Sean. And he's super great to her. And I love him for that.
Oh,
So yeah, he's awesome.
I'm a lucky girl.
Yes, she is. All right, you guys. So we are going to let you guys go because it is almost 3 o'clock. And we are so honored that you guys decided to share this time with us. If you watch it on the replay, there'll be lots of stuff to links and all that kind of stuff available. And we are so blessed to know each other and to be able to share and spotlight what's going on in the world of wellness with you guys. So thank you for attending the Master Your Recovery Virtual Summit Series. This is session 5, even though I think that the uh, flyer said 4, but that's okay. It's all good. Erica pointed that out to me that I made that mistake. So, but it's all fine. And there's replays on everything. We are going to have. There's another session coming. Our launch is the 19th of May. There's going to be lots of information available for that. You guys, if you've enjoyed the series so far, give us some shout outs. Check out Karen's website. Go check out Tom Ballard and he's the water guy. Um, keep praying for Troy Pride Jr. that he makes it back to the field and that we are all ready to take on our wellness and master our own recovery. Thank y'all so much and see y'all next time.
Thank you, Elle. God bless.
Thanks, Karen.